Hi everyone. So today I'll be going over my theory intervention selection, which is just going to be a brief overview of what I want my paper 3 to look like. So for the health issue, I am talking about suicides related to mental health. Population is Native American youth, and the level of prevention I'll be using is secondary or early detection and treatment. So, with the help of my paper 2 and my literature review, I have found some risk factors or contributing factors at each level of the ecological model to help me figure out what the main problem is. And first, starting with the individual level, some risk factors were difficulty understanding and dealing with emotion. That came from a study where they asked some kids some questions about their past suicide attempts. And a commonality between all of those kids was that they had a hard time dealing with or figuring out their emotions and handling it in a healthy way. So that's a risk factor. And also having a difficult school life. It made them feel like they couldn't reach out or ask for help. Some protective factors for that would be support groups and programs that promote healthy conversations about mental health, just helping them figure out where their emotions lie, what they are, and helping them cope with that in a healthy way. At the interpersonal level of the ecological model, some risk factors were family conflict and having a hard time reaching out, which kind of goes back to the difficult school life. If they're having family conflict, they don't really feel like they have an opportunity or they should even bring up the fact that they're feeling sad or down or depressed. Some protective factors for that would be having a good relationship with your parents and your friends and having support from your friends. One way that you could do this would be by, just educating these people on the importance of having conversations with your kids about mental health, because that would help a lot. At the organizational level, we're really focusing on the lack of health services and resources. These communities do not have enough health services, especially with mental health. So that needs to be a number one priority. And also, the use of alternative medicine was a common theme among Native American youth, just because of their culture and their history. So that was also a contributing factor. And some protective factors for this would be having affordable and accessible mental health care in Native American communities, which would, help with a lot of the issues. At the community level, high rates of poverty, substance abuse, and crowded households are also contributing factors. Some of the literature review noticed that most of the kids that had attempted suicide in the past or were thinking about it, um, they came from these communities that had high rates of poverty and substance abuse and crowded households. Communities like that are also communities who have high rates of suicides. So, protective factors for those kinds of things would be community gatherings and events, really having a strong community bond and spending time with others could help with this community a lot with those kinds of things. And at the policy level, the number one contributing risk factor was generational trauma. These people have been experiencing historical mistreatment by the US government, and it's been passed down through generations, and they still are not treated fairly, in my opinion. So that's been a huge risk factor for Native American youth. And some protective factors for that would be policies that protect the quality of life for Native Americans. So these are some of the two theories that I will be using with my intervention. And the first one is upstream and downstream influences of health. I really wanted to focus on this just because, this theory breaks it up into three parts, three stages at which change can occur. And upstream is really where I want to focus on because it happens at the policy level. And I think that the majority of the problem with the high rates of suicides in these communities is at the policy level or the national, transnational level. So that's why I wanted to do upstream influences of health. And the second theory that I'll be using is the social cognitive theory, since it focuses on the individual social connections, which is a crucial risk factor for mental health issues. So, behavior can be shaped and learned with help, and the social cognitive theory will help us do that, hopefully, with prevention programs and support groups. So now this chart really puts into perspective exactly what I want my paper 3 to look like. And if you focus here in the middle, the problem that we're addressing here is that Native American youth are disproportionately affected by suicides. And I included some statistics like Native American and adolescents have the highest suicide rates with 29.6 suicides per 100,000, which is roughly 3.5 times the US average. And Native American youth are twice as likely to die from suicides as their white counterparts. So, like I said, the main contributing factors that I'm going to be focusing on for my intervention is the lack of affordable health services, lack of policy and government issues, and the inability to reach out for help, or like the lack of education on how to reach out for help, how to deal with your emotions. Those are the main factors that I'll be focusing on. And the protective factors for these things are going to be affordable and accessible mental health services, protective policies, and support groups and programs that promote like healthy conversations. The desired outcomes are going to be, obviously, we want suicide rates to go down drastically. They're way too high for this group of people. And it's very sad to see such young people take their own lives. So this would be the main goal, is to decrease the amount of suicides that are happening in this community. And the way we're going to do that is by giving them accessible therapy services, psychiatrists, and other crucial mental health services that need to be put into these communities and stay there. So my intervention, basically, it's going to be that I want to start a prevention program in these communities on reservations that would include support groups, access to mental health resources, as in like brochures or like referring them to someone who can actually help them with like psychiatry issues and therapy like issues, those kinds of things. And then also we would include on-site bi-weekly mental health consultations that would be completely free because that's the main goal here, is to make it free or affordable. And the only way this really will work is if we include some policy level changes as well. So there also might be some, issues with signing up and being eligible and things like that. So all those things will be taken into account in my paper and will be discussed more thoroughly. But that's the basic idea. So thank you guys.